Hey, this is Trissa from Sewing and Things, and in this video we're going to sew up our Grady's and knit. Once you have your pattern pieces traced or cut out, the first thing I like to do is trim the seam allowance. Since this pattern is made for a woven fabric, the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. However, for me, sewing 5/8 of an inch on my serger is kind of a pain, so I like to cut that down to a 3/8 seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I always lose my fabric gauge, so I'm just going to use my little square. Since the seam allowance is 5/8, I'm going to be removing 1/4 of an inch on all of my seams. Now, if you notice, I did not change the seam allowance on the pocket edge, and I also did not change the seam allowance on the bottom hem. For your back piece, since we are not sewing a dart, you can go ahead and straighten that out a bit. And then also on the bottom hem, you can straighten out that slight curve, since, at least for me, on my knit version, I'm going to be adding cuffs. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten out that back. Now that all of my seam allowances have been shortened, I'm going to cut out my pattern. Since the Grady pants are more of a straight leg, when you were sewing them with knit, you can gradually taper these in a little bit if you'd like. However, since these are for my son, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to add a cuff to the bottom and stretch the cuff to fit the opening. Once your pattern has been cut out, we're going to go ahead and cut out the fabric. Now go ahead and take those pocket bags, and to your front piece, we're going to need to cut that slant on our pocket, just like we did for the regular Grady's. Now we're going to start off by sewing our pocket. So go ahead and grab your two front pieces and your pocket bag. And we're going to start off by sewing our pocket right side together along that straight edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that with my serger. So go ahead and sew both of those, and then we'll come back. Once your pocket bag is sewn on, I like to go ahead and do an understitch on the pocket side, catching the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on both of my pocket pieces. Now once that is understitched, we're going to sew our pocket bag together. And remember, since we are sewing a knit, you don't have to do a French seam. I'm going to go ahead and just sew this straight on my serger with right sides together along this bottom edge on both of our pockets. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. Once that is sewn, to keep this outside edge from unraveling, you can either thread it back through your stitches, or you can tie it in a knot. I'm just going to tie it in a knot. You will want to line up the raw edges and pin in place, and then baste along the top and the side seams. So go ahead and do that for both of your front pieces, and then we'll come back. Once that has been basted on the top and the side, go ahead and grab your back piece and place it right sides together with your front piece. Now we're going to start off by pinning along the side and the inseam. Once both of those are pinned, we're going to sew it with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, unless you did not change your seam allowance in the beginning. So go ahead and do that on both of your legs, and then we'll come back. With both of those sewn, go ahead and flip one of them right side out, and you're going to place it inside of the other leg so they're right side together. Now we're going to pin the crotch curve. With that pin, go ahead and sew along this edge with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we'll come back. With that sewn, go ahead and open it up. Your pants should look like this so far. So now we have a couple of options for the waistband. Now you can use the full elastic waistband in the Grady's and then insert elastic to fit. However, for my pants here, I'm going to use the waistband from the movie night pajamas as well as the cuffs from the movie night pajamas. So depending on what waistband you're going to do, go ahead and grab that and then we'll come back. For the pants I'm making, I am doing the yoga waistband from the movie night pajamas. So go ahead and take your waistband piece and sew it, place it right sides together and sew along the short end with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So go ahead and do that and then we'll come back. Now go ahead and fold your waistband wrong sides together. Now we're going to need to mark the quarter points. Find the center front by folding it in half. Now do the same thing for your pants. Now match up your quarter points on your waistband with the points on your pants, starting at the back. Now we're going to stretch the waistband to fit. Once that is pinned on, go ahead and sew all the way around with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we'll come back. If you are going to be using the yoga waistband from the movie night pajamas, make sure that your fabric has adequate stretch and recovery. You should have at least 5% spandex in your waistband fabric. Once that has been sewn on, we are now going to go to the bottom of our pants. Now, you can hem it or you can add cuffs. And I did not change the length, so these are going to end up a little long, but that's okay because my son tends to grow taller than he grows wider. So these should fit him for a while. So I have my cuffs from the movie night pajamas. So I'm going to go ahead and do just like we did for the waistband, folding them in half, right side together. You're going to sew on that short side with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So go ahead and do that with both of your cuffs, and then we'll come back. With both of those sewn, go ahead and place them wrong side together. And I like to pin it in, I just like to pin this closed and then pin it on the other center. So go ahead and do that. And go ahead and also find the halfway point on your pants. I like to line up the seam with the inseam. And then go ahead and match those up. Okay, with both of those pinned, go ahead and sew those on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we'll come back. Once the bottom of your pants or shorts have been hemmed or the cuffs have been sewn on, your knit Grady's are done and you now have a cute little pair of joggers.
To stay up to date on the latest videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel, or you can check out my blog at sewingandthings.com.